All right, so welcome to Digging Deeper, a ministry of City Church podcast geared towards tackling issues in the Christian church that pastors and leaders wouldn't have the chance to talk about, or maybe they go into it as in depth on Sundays. And one of the goals of these conversations is to keep them as unscripted as possible.
Right.
I do have a little some prompts in the beginning, just to really get the conversation
going. We're just talking, right?
Yeah, because otherwise pastors pull statistics out of thin air. So I want to actually make sure that I get them right. So I'm joined today.
We make them up.
Yeah, we make them up. And so I'm joined today by Pastor Lisa Toney and Reverend Dr. I'll prophetically put it out there because he's on his way to his doctorate. Kenneth Curry. And so Lisa, you want to
absolutely. Well, hey, if you guys listened to the last podcast, which I hope you did, and if not, check it out. We talked about some recent studies that have come out of the Barna Group that paint kind of a negative picture of Christianity's decline, at least from a perspective of church attendance.
Yeah.
So we also looked at some very hopeful statistics that showed that have come out of a brand new study from October 2022 that showed almost 80% of the population surveyed at that time said that they have some certain spiritual dimension to the world. They believe that that exists.
Right.
So that's really good news.
That's really good.
You know, that people still believe that there is a spiritual reality in our world and in our lives. So one of the reasons we cited this last week is to ask folks why they don't want to attend church. And often some of that answer is past hurts and hangups. So we already did a whole podcast already on church hangups. These two rocked it. So thankful for them. But today we just want to pop the hood a bit further and talk more about what the holdups that you might think are out there that are kind of the blockades that are really preventing folks from going to church. And I thought we'd start out with a little bit of fun.
Okay.
A little bit of fun. All right. So I came across this online and thought I'd share it. The 12 reasons why a local pastor stopped attending sports events. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Every time I went, they asked me for money. Yes. The people with whom I had to sit didn't seem very friendly. Not going back there. The seats were too hard. The coach never came to call on me. The referee made a decision with which I did not agree. Okay, here's a big one. Y'all, I was sitting with some hypocrites.
Yeah.
They did not stay loyal to the team. Some games went into overtime and I was late getting home.
Yeah.
The band played some songs I have never heard before. What? The games are scheduled when I want to do other things. My parents took me to too many games when I was growing up.
Oh, that must have been hard.
It was rough. It was rough. Since I read a book on sports, I feel that I know more than the coaches know.
Wow.
I feel like that happens often at Little League.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And our last one is I don't want to take my children because I want them to choose for themselves what sports they like best.
Yeah, that seems to make sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay,
Kids
so
know everything.
We don't want to trivialize the subject too much, just having a little fun there. But what do you guys think as we start talking about this? What are some of the, excuses? Should we use that word? Reasons that people have that they think that they don't need to be at church. Yeah.
Kenneth, you want to take it first?
Sure. One big reason or excuse that I found is that people feel like the church wants to tell them what to do and how to live and wants to take control of their life. And they're not sure they're ready for that, or the church is judgmental. And, for me, I think that's a big deal because they feel there are people out there that feel like we want to control their lives by telling them what's bad, what's not good, what they need to change. And so they stay away from it. They want to be where people will accept them for who they are and not expect them to change.
That's good. I think definitely the hypocrisy thing, and one thing that I say a lot is, if you come to City Church, it's full of hypocrites.
That's right.
It really is. But so is Target, and so is Disneyland, and so is your family. And really, like anywhere there's human beings, there's going to be hypocrisy.
Right.
My hope is that we are honest with our failures here, and that we are willing to share about them. But yeah, I think that's a big one. That's out there in the culture. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think especially as I think about kids and, that little last one that I talked about just in the sports analogy. And I talk to a lot of parents who are like, we want our kids to be able to decide for themselves. And that really kind of breaks my heart when I hear that, because if they don't have anything modeled to them, they really don't have any examples to really even have a basis to go off of, And so even if you are a believing follower of Jesus, and maybe you don't find church that valuable, those kiddos are watching what you're doing. And if that is not something that's valuable to you, then it's not going to be valuable to them too. And so I just would love to encourage and see parents be able to not just say we want our kids to choose their own way, but to present them a really healthy way to walk and to be raised.
When I think about that, I think about, I have little kids and they can't swim yet. And, I could be like, well, I'm going to wait till a point in your life. If you feel like swimming's useful for you, then I'll go ahead and, you can learn on your own. But the reality is it's not just like wanting to swim. It's a safety thing if they fall in. And so I think of like that philosophy, and I think of the swimming. It's like, you want to give them the tools to swim in this world. Now, what they do with that,
that's right.
That's going to be on them. But I have heard that from a lot of parents too, who honestly used to come here and now don't. Yeah. And you would see the mom or the dad, but not the kids. And, and it's like, well, I don't want to push them. And I would hear that.
When I was a kid, my mother pushed us to do a lot of stuff. You talk about swimming. She made us swim. She made us play sports. She made us be a part of things. Even I was a believer by high school. And so I wasn't always inclined to do the high school stuff. And my mother made me do it. She made me go to dance and she made me be a part of it. So she just didn't make me come to church, but she wanted to be sure I was well-rounded, well experienced, well opportunities. I think that believers should do the same for their kids. And I think you don't have to shove it down their throat, but you ought to expose them, as Lisa said, to the opportunity so that they can make good choices and see the value. I think there's value in community. There's value in learning biblical axioms that you can use for your life. There's value there. Mm-hmm. And when kids or your young people are away from you, they need to have some type of tools that they can utilize and work with. So I think that it's really important still to open up the opportunity. And I think that there are several valuable things just from coming to church. Especially, if we even go back to what we talked about last episode about church hurt, how do you actually learn to get along with people?
Yeah, that's good.
Especially if you're at home now, working from home, you're not in the office, you don't work with people. How do you actually learn relationships?
That's right. How
to talk to people, how to get over offenses or hurt, those types of things.
Yeah, because with your coworkers, you have to be there because you got to keep your job.
Yeah.
The people don't have to be there for church. So how do you do it when it's like this is an optional thing, but it's like, no, it's not, because God said it's the family.
Yeah.
That's really good. Another one that I think of a lot is doubt. So I'll just share a little bit of my experience with doubt. Maybe y'all can chime in. One of my real deep-seated personal beliefs is that if you haven't really, truly doubted Christianity, I don't really know how seriously you've taken your faith. I may be stepping too far, and Kenneth's getting uncomfortable sitting next to me right now. But
I've had doubts.
I'm one of these where I've always landed on that. I think it's John 6 where Jesus started teaching hard things and people went away. Mm-hmm. And at the end of it, he turns to his disciples and he says, y'all gonna go, you're gonna go too.
I like that text.
And I love, this is where I've always come. Whenever I've been in a place of doubt, I go back to what Peter responded. He goes, Lord, where are we going to go?
Yeah.
Only you have the words of life. I look at other faiths. I look at, the structures of the world. I think, okay, if I pursued the pleasures of life and I kind of, you just predictably can go, I know where that's going to wind up. And I don't like the end of that. So when I doubt, I just always come back to that of, Lord, where else would we go?
Yeah, I don't have anyone else to go to but you. That's kind of what Peter says in that text. And the idea that I want to come back and I want to wrestle with my doubts and my experiences and what I learned in church. And I think that the church gives us great opportunity. If we see the church as opportunity to grow and not as this stifling effect, I think there are great places to wrestle with text, to wrestle with ideas and talk. Even like this podcast that we're doing now, this gives us an opportunity to say, I haven't thought about that before. Hadn't looked at it that way. And maybe it will help me in my future, in other relationships, in other opportunities, help me to critically think about some things that come up in church. And when we give ourselves opportunity, in my opinion, we give ourselves opportunity to wrestle with things, it actually deepens our faith. Because I have a chance to understand it for myself better. There are a lot of things in the biblical text I don't understand. And in my church, we say, well, understand it better by and by. And I choose that that's okay. But the things that I do, I want to align myself. I want it to grow me and make me better. And I think that we have to give people the opportunity to understand you can have doubts.
Yes.
You don't have to be perfect. One of the things when I do a call to salvation, I try to, help make sure that people understand you don't have to have it together today.
Yeah.
Today is about trust. Will you trust that Christ can make your life different and that he wants to partner with you and be a friend to you and all of those things? But when we have that idea that I've got to come to church and I got to be perfect the first day, it doesn't help.
It doesn't help.
I think that's a really good point, because I think you can have doubt and still move forward in your faith. You can come to church with doubt, Exactly. I mean, all of us have some level of doubt. And there's even a place in scripture where someone says to Jesus, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. So that profession right there, I do believe at some level, but I'm still struggling with some doubt, And Jesus was there for that. He would show up for that and be like, okay, so he honors the steps that we're taking forward, moving forward to better understand. So none of us have it all figured out, and, but we believe with where we're at and what we're able to believe with that Jesus is real. He's active.
Yes.
He has your good in mind. He has a hope. He has a future for you, all of those things. And so if we can believe, even if we don't understand how it's all going to work out, that God is working, that somehow helps us through our doubt, helps us to keep moving forward.
Yeah. And for me, sometimes it's like, well, what's the alternative, to believe that we all came from nothing and this is all there is. And
it's all accidental
and it's just, it's no happenstance. Yeah. I just can't, that's where I go to what I've heard Obi say, doubt your doubts, and it's like, okay. So here's another one that I honestly see in a lot of just my neighbors and stuff. They just don't see a need for church in their life. Do y'all deal with that with people in your life?
Yeah, I've dealt with people that feel like they don't need church, and especially for us in the African-American community. We have heard before about people who were unchurched, had never been to church, and we never believed that would happen in our community. Everybody goes to church, right? And I've been talking to my people now. There are a lot of people that they have not come to church on Easter. They did not come to church for Mother's Day. They have no background in the African-American community. Wow. And, for us, it was like, no, that will never happen. It has happened. And there are people that have no, what we call Christian experience. Like when we would have people join our church, we said, you can come with Christian experience. That means you've been to another church. They don't have it.
They have nothing.
And so they don't see a need for it. Think about somebody that's 18 years old, never gone to church. They've kind of figured out how to navigate the world without a spiritual core or center. And then they say, so why would I come? Why can't I stay home and watch TV or go to a game or do all those other? I think that we do see that. And we have to, I want to use the word attractive, but we have to make the case for why church is important.
That's good.
And there are many. There's community. There's spiritual development. There is a challenge to your own personal ideas and beliefs. All of those things are there.
Serving the community.
Opportunity to do that. And you have to see that we do it differently. Because they might say, well, I can go be a part of this. And they serve the community. Yes, I can go be a part of this. We have to make the difference and the case for why it's different.
That's really good. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was just talking to a friend of mine, and they were at Little League. Little League's a big part of my life right now.
Hey,
and,
you're a mom.
Yeah, and he was talking to some of the people, and I was actually in this conversation, and they were talking about some real hard stuff that they were going through. And my friend started saying, hey, you know what? There is a real enemy that we are fighting against that wants you not to succeed. They had no idea what he was talking about. They're like, are you talking about China? Like, literally, that's what they said.
Oh, I believe it.
And he's like, no, there is an enemy. Satan is real. And he had never heard, this was a dad, never heard it before in his life. And he called his wife over and he's like, come over here and listen to this. And they were just so intrigued because they had no experience with this at all, And so I think especially with, everybody's going through hard stuff, and to help, I think that one of the beautiful things about being a follower of Jesus and scripture and community at the church is it helps gives us a language and a different understanding for some of that hard stuff.
A framework.
That there's a brokenness.
I agree.
And it gives us a resource in Jesus to have a different lens of perspective and to walk through those situations without completely shattering, without becoming cynical and bitter and just giving up on life.
So church gives us a framework for how we can view the world, right? Our worldview, but then it also gives us resources on how we deal with the things we come up against. I like it.
Yeah.
When you're talking about, the person who hadn't heard about the enemy, I think, one of the best ways that we can reach people is just to be out in their world. And I often say, one of the best evangelistic decisions I ever made was to get a dog, because you got to walk it and you got to talk to your neighbors and, being in Little League and all that stuff. And because if these people aren't coming here, we can bring that to them. And I think in a way that's not, offensive, but did in that very well, hey, listen, there's opposition in your life. And so I think that's awesome.
And there are a lot of books now just on that idea of neighboring, the art of neighboring, how we interact with people and we connect with people so that if they meet us in a non-intrusive, non-invasive, non-threatening place, then they'll be more inclined to come to our churches because they've seen us outside of the church. And a lot of times what we've dealt with as pastors is most people see us in church and then they don't believe that we are real people outside of church. Like it always, when I was a youth pastor, was funny to me that the kids were like, you go to Walmart? Because they saw me as...
They think you live there.
Yeah, they're like, you're at the church. But they see you as a church celebrity as opposed to...
a person.
As a person. Yeah, I go to Walmart. I get my hair cut. I do all the same things you do, but it's different. And on the reverse, or people that have not been in church, if they experience us outside of church first, and then they come in, believe it or not, it's actually even easier for us as church leaders because they realize that we're regular people too.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. And I almost feel like a bigger part of my ministry is when I'm outside of the church, like helping my neighbors when they need help, because I don't want to just be holed up in my house and just drive to my church and serve there,
So in the community in which I live, I didn't realize how many people kind of knew I was a pastor and they kind of talk about it. But one day I was just out doing some stuff and I'll be honest, I'm not always, because I'm always at church, I'm not as engaged in the community. And a lady was walking her dog and she said, now you're a pastor, right? I said, yes. She said, my husband has been diagnosed with cancer and I would just like for you to pray for him.
Wow.
And she gave me his name and I committed to doing that. And every time I see her, I'll ask, how's his progress? How are things going? I'm still praying for him. Those types of things. I think that having that opportunity outside in as opposed to inside out, it's so much more meaningful because people kind of meet you where you are and then they can travel with you to another space.
Yeah, I think it's so good. So we got the people who, believe but don't go, different reasons why. Then you got people who don't believe and don't go. And I think that's a great way to minister them is to bring it there. Now, one of the things I've seen amongst committed Christians, and I just even some I know really, really well, I'm not going to name any names, but is they just don't want to attend when they're not in charge. And I'm talking about like Christians who know the Bible and actually should be like teaching our small groups and, leading children's ministry. Yeah. But because they had some past ministry leadership experience or something, they just don't want to go. I don't know if y'all have seen that, but it's something that for me, it's like, unless it's serving a platform they already feel and believe, they don't want to. I've seen that. I don't know if y'all have seen that in your environment, but so I guess though, what's at the heart of making these excuses? And it's, I think there's all kinds of reasons we all make for things that we don't want to do, right? I've heard it said that if you want to do something, you'll find a million reasons to do it. If you don't want to do it, you'll find a million reasons not to do it. But what do you guys think is at the heart of making excuses? I'll let you kind of chime in on that one.
Well, we make excuses when we are afraid, we fear something. And so it's much easier to make an excuse about it because then it feels like we've got a little protection out there, and sometimes it's the unknown. We don't know what to expect. And I think especially folks who've never had experience with the church, they're like, oh man, are they going to is the spotlight going to right on me? Are they going to call me out? And honestly, you can go into a church and sit in the back row and check it out and, see what it's all about. And we're not going to call you out,
And even if we ask you to stand or if we ask you to do something, you have the option not to. We don't know if that's right. Yeah. You don't have to do it. I think some people don't realize that is there. I think another reason besides fear and protection is some people don't come because of what they heard from other people. And I think it's what you're saying too, Lisa, experience it for yourself. Try it for yourself. And don't just give it one opportunity, give it several. And don't just try one church. Try a few. Yeah. See what's out there and what are the opportunities. I think that we in the church are getting better at understanding. We have to be all things to all people. That we have to work at reaching people. And the first church might not be as good at it, and they're in a different spot than what you are in. But I think churches are trying. Yeah. I err on the side that I don't think churches are just out to, annihilate relationships and push people aside. I think churches are trying, but it's new space for them. I think about this whole pandemic, and many of us made this shift to online and shift to cameras and all of that stuff. And we hadn't been there before. So we had to work the space to the best of our ability. And Kyle, I know you're really good in that space, and you might look and say, they could do this better, they could do that better. But at the end of the day, I know your heart. You'd be like, right now, I'm just applaud the fact that they're getting out there. Yeah. And that's what we have to look at when it comes to churches. The church, universal, has been around for thousands of years now. But the individual church, we're all still learning how to do it. Yeah. And we're going to make mistakes at it. And we give people opportunity to make mistakes in politics. We give opportunities to make mistakes in business. We give people opportunity to make mistakes on job. You got to give the church a little bit of space. Yeah. And then once you are committed and you've made a commitment to Christ and you come in, you will have to learn and you'll be nurtured as a leader and opportunity. And it's still going to go under development. Yeah. I like the story. It says, as soon as you find the perfect church and then you join it, it's no longer perfect because you're not perfect. Yeah. And so you've got to always work at it.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm really praying comes from this is that hundreds, maybe thousands, who knows, of people might hear this. And one day, maybe people who you're in that middle camp of you believe, but you don't go. Yeah. And you're watching this, somebody shared with you, I don't know. But that you would take that step to give it a shot. And so I don't know where you're at in your own walk and relationship, though anyone who might be out there, but I just want to encourage you to give it a shot, and to become a person of testimony, to put it in your words, and not a person of excuses. The church, there's all these things you can read about it online, but not until you actually go and experience, you don't know what that's going to be like. I'm going to be preaching through John 5 this week, the man who was born an invalid and he sat at the pool of Siloam. It says 38 years, and he's got his excuses in there. And he says, Lord, I can't get up every time somebody else goes and gets in front of me. And I was struck by, as I was studying it, Jesus didn't go and talk to anybody but this one guy. And all of them were believing and looking at this pool where they thought that's where healing was, and really it was Jesus who was coming here. So, and here he was giving his excuses to Jesus as to why it was never going to work out. And I just think that's all of us sometimes. So I just want to encourage you to be a person of testimony and not excuses.
Jesus can flip that story. Like, what if you flip your doubt, and what's the best case scenario that could happen? You could encounter the almighty living God. I mean, that's a testimony. I met God.
Amen.
So give it a shot, man. You never know.
Give it a shot. Any final words from either of you? I like give it a shot. I'm going to go on that. Well, hey, thank you for tuning in. We're so glad that you took the time. Thank you.
Oh my
Pastor
goodness,
Lisa Toney and
I'm glad to be
Reverend
here.
Dr. Kenneth Curry. Hopefully you'll hear from these folks again at some point.
We're
Who
looking
knows?
forward to it.
Absolutely.
All right.
So fun.
Take care. See y'all
Bye-bye.
later.
All right.
Take care.